spent like 10 minutes getting this to look some kind of way, and it is treacherous all around me. I'm trapped, I can't get up, but it looks good, so let's podcast. Hey guys, I'm Bella, the maker mama boss lady behind Fiber and Fox, and this is episode 69 of my podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you've returned, thanks so much for coming back. I am, like I said, Bella. I'm a crochet designer. I actually have crochet design content to share with you. Even a tester call, super exciting. So that's coming, but I also knit and I talk about it here with all of you, and I think, yeah, that's about it for today. We also have the giveaway winner from if you had to enter for the Knitting for Olive. It was a separate video, but I have a book that I'm giving away, so I'm going to announce that at the end here. And we just have lots of good stuff to share today. A lot of graynbow, a lot of gray and rainbow, so let's get started. Up first, I have just a little pinch of admin I want to cover. This is my regular podcast. I've been trying, I think I got a video up every week in January, which is exciting because it's been kind of a hiatus for a little bit. But we're finally kind of getting into a rhythm of like everybody goes to bed at like a similar time, so my children are sleeping in the same pockets of time, and I've had a little more time in the evenings and things have just worked out. It's actually filming in a daytime now, which is also exciting. My husband's with the kids, but trying to get a better schedule of both pattern writing and content filming, podcasts and whatnot. But it was at one point an every other week podcast. So this is a regular podcast episode, but I did also in January post my box of socks, which is always a very popular, fun one. All the socks that I knit in 2023. So if you want to pop back to that, I have that, and I have a whole playlist of, I think from 2020 on, of all of my box of socks. And I also finally posted a tour of this whole yarn room. I had been promising a tour for like a year and a half. I had filmed when we had renovated this room in our downstairs in 2022. I had filmed a tour days before my son was born, and he's going on 17 months now. So it's been a while, but that never got posted. So I kind of redid some stuff, and I'm taking you on a full tour of our yarn room, craft room, art studio, homeschool space, all the good stuff, artsy stuff, learning stuff that happens in this room. So I'm taking you through all the cabinets, all the drawers, all my organization. I know you guys are used to this view, but I'm taking you all around the other spots and into closets and all that fun stuff. So if you like that kind of thing, I do have a yarn room tour video up as well. And then, yeah, like I said, I'm going to announce the giveaway winner at the end, and I think that's it on the admin bits. So let's dive into some actual crochet designing, because I'm so excited to finally have that to share with you. I'm going to apologize in advance if there's a bit of sniffing and tea drinking and maybe my voice is a little off. I'm kind of working through a sore throat. So have some tea. And before I talk about new designs, I should say what I am wearing is my Dandelion Days cowl. It is one of my many dandelion stitch patterns. And this is one of my very few bulky weight yarn patterns. So this is a chonky scarf. And it works up really quick. It's somewhere between a scarf and a cowl. It is attached, so it stays on, so I guess technically a cowl. I don't really know what all the classifications are, but this is a fairly simple pattern. There's a stitch tutorial for the dandelion stitch itself, and I walk you through all of that, and then making it is very repetitive and easy to fasten it all together and do the tassels, and it's fabulous. And then I should mention also, I cannot point looking at the screen. Back there, my mannequin, Bolin, is wearing my Tidal Fades shawl, DK version. This is something we're going to talk about in a little bit. That's not my design, but in case you were wondering what me and Bolin are wearing, that's what we're wearing today. Designs by Fiber and Fox. They will be linked below, as will everything that I mentioned in this video about either my patterns, somebody else's patterns, yarns if I can find them, all the good stuff linked down below the video, as one does. But new designs. I have a new design, and usually I do tester calls by way of my mailing list, which is also linked below if you'd like to get on it. My mailing list and on Instagram is where I've typically done tester calls, but I think, don't hold me to it, I think down below the video, as long as everything lines up and I get it all done this week, I think when this video goes live, the tester call is also going to be going live. So if that is the case, it will be linked down below the video. There's going to be a Google Doc or a Google form, I guess, where you can apply if you would like to test what I'm about to show you. If it's not down there, it's because I didn't get the tester call out in the time frame that I thought, and I apologize. But that is the plan. I have to share with you not one, but two, actually three samples of a new design. And I'm not one who typically makes multiple samples, but this design is very versatile in that you can make it in basically any yarn that you want, and it's kind of a one skein wonder, or a two skein if you wanted to go that route. But yeah, I've made it in a bunch of different weights and a bunch of different yarns to kind of show you some options. So I'm gonna pop this off real quick, hang on. I know we talked about this last podcast, but this is my SCARFIE shawl. So I'll put in some pictures of, I don't think at the time of this filming I will have gotten modeled shots yet, but I do have some mannequin shots. I have 3 versions of the scarf shawl option. And then just for fun, I made it in a little tiny headband version too. Just, I guess it could also be a tiny one-tie kerchief kind of thing. But this pattern is designed in such a way that you're gonna start at one end, and basically it's gonna increase up into a midpoint, and then you're gonna decrease down to the other end. So it's worked end to end, and it's made in such a way, and the pattern describes it in such a way that you're gonna be able to calculate how much yarn you have. I'm gonna highly recommend using a scale, a kitchen scale, a yarn scale. I mean, maybe they do make specific yarn scales, but I use a kitchen scale or like a postal scale. I have a blog post. Can I reach this without falling? It's so flattering. This is a kitchen scale that's used for weighing grams of flour and whatnot, but they're great to have if you need to either test yarn and provide yardages, test patterns and provide yardages for designers, or if you're working anything where you need to know how much yarn you're using up, how much yarn you have left, how much your project weighs in total. These are great to have, and I think this one's less than like 20 bucks. I can link it. Bella from the future, don't forget. Link this down below. But a scale of some kind. So I'm gonna recommend that in the pattern, that you weigh your yarn prior to starting, and you can't just go by the ball band because it will say 100 grams or whatever, 50 grams, whatever they're claiming, but it's usually not dead on. Very rarely is it under, because then you would kind of be getting a bad deal for yarn if you're paying for less than that. But very often it's over. One of the skeins I was working with was over 110 grams. And so for a project where you're gonna try to use up all the yarn in entirety that you have, whatever amount that it is, it's very helpful to know what you're starting with and then what a good halfway point, give or take a few yards, so you have a little bit of buffer for yarn chicken. Yeah, then you can use up the entirety of the skeins. So this one that I'm wearing is the DK weight version, and this is yarn that I dyed myself with our Christmas tree. So this one wraps around, these are all blocked, and they wrap various lengths. I'll have to put in the mannequin photos to kind of show you how much they dangle down, but this one's kind of just a little close to the neck. And again, it depends on what yarn you're using and how much, and gauges are provided in the pattern and all of that. So I'm providing info for the pattern when it comes out, as well as if you want to test for a fingering weight and or sport weight, DK weight and or worsted, and bulky weight. Anything else in there, you can kind of play around. So this is the DK weight version. I think last podcast I wore the fingering weight version most of the time. But you could really make this any length or size that you wanted. And if you didn't want to use up the entirety of a skein, that's fine too. Like the fingering weight one does make quite a long, like that's 2 wraps, 3 wraps where it dangles down to like my waist. So I could wrap this, let's see, about 4 times around myself. If I wanted just a little tie, you can kind of finagle it too. This just feels very fashion. I don't know why. All the knitters are knitting little tiny scarves. Little scarfy shawls, you know? Little scarf, little shawl. And you could technically make it out to the width of like a really big shawl, but then it would end up being really, really long, but there's options for that. But with just one skein of fingering weight for crochet, it's very hard to find a good project that you can use up only one skein, work with only one skein. And I do have a DK weight and fingering weight 1 skein wonder cowl if you're looking for 1 skein projects for crochet as well. But this one I think it came out to about somewhere between 90 and 100 inches. I don't remember because I did all the measurements for the different sizes, but it's pretty long, and you can wrap it plenty of times. And if you wanted it to be hanging down more like regular scarf style, I guess, and without the tie, you could just wrap it like twice and then have the ends hang down. You could loop it around, various scarf tying methods. And then I made a bulky weight version, actually holding 2 strands of DK, or actually I think it was worsted. This is a discontinued yarn, but 2 strands of worsted weight I held together for more of a bulky gauge. And I made this one for my daughter, and it's very long. So you could wear it, I'm gonna just put it over because I'm tired of taking one off, but you could wear it, you know, like a normal scarf or the tie or however you would like. But I'm looking for testers, assuming that test call is still down below, testers to be working in a variety of yarns, variety of amounts of yarn. So even if you didn't want to use a full skein, maybe you're working with a 50-gram skein, or like this, I had a little 12-gram scrap. This doesn't, I don't think, fit around my head quite well. This is 12 grams, but with a 20-gram mini, you could for sure do an adult size headband, but this fits around my 5-year-old daughter's head really cute and do a little tie. I do not, I do not rock a headband. My daughter looks very cute, but I look, this is crazy. But you could also do this as a single tie around your neck, like a little Boy Scout kerchief kind of thing. So there's a lot of options here. So I'm looking for some testers in all of those fingering to bulky weight, various sizes, and we're just really going to be playing around with what sizes and lengths we can get, and I'm just going to need some yarn weight and yardage information just so I can kind of include some of that info in the pattern when it releases. I'm hoping to have this out end of February. It's not going to be a super long test call, whether it's down below or not. The test is probably going to be less than a month because it's very simple to work up, and I'm going to be looking specifically for people who have yarn on hand. When I do garment tests, there's a much larger range of sizes and larger test period because you got to buy yarn and a sweater quantity and gauging and swatching. This is fairly simple. We're going to do it pretty quick. So hoping end of February, beginning of March, I'm going to have this out. So this is the SCARFIE shawl, if you are interested at all in testing. I guess I should maybe show you the stitch pattern up a little closer, but I was kind of going for an eyelet and garter feel. This stitch I mentioned before is in a couple of my other patterns, and then this is, I was just going for a garter stitch type ribbed feeling. And yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with it. It's super cute. And I know I wore it last podcast, but no, I'll take it off. I'll put, okay, I got my dandelion dates because I wore this in the last video, but I think it's very cute and very, I don't know, it just feels fancy. And I think I even put in the pattern, like, go to a coffee shop, buy yourself a fancy pastry, because that's just the feeling that this gives me. Very fashion, but also practical because it's warm. And if you could, if you make it in a variety of yarn weights or like plant-based versus animal fiber, you could have one for every season, all of the time. Keep your neck cool, keep your neck warm, keep your neck shaded from the sun, have a headband, all the options really. So very excited to actually have a design in the works. Pop down below if you're interested in testing, and if that's not down there, it's already underway. Stay tuned for the pattern. So keep your eye out for that one. Finished objects wise, I probably should have told you what all the yarns were on the SCARFIE shawls, but that's all going to be in the pattern. And also I do pattern drop videos where I talk about the yarns and the inspiration and the tester photos and all of that. Whenever I do release a pattern, I have a whole pattern drop playlist if you're interested in that kind of thing. But when I do launch a pattern, I put out a video with all the info that you might want or need. So I'll just include that in there so you don't have to hear me say it a bunch of times. But I do have a finished object. It is kind of luxurious. I've had this skein. These I think are discontinued. Debbie Bliss Pure Bliss Collection Iris Superfine Merino Wool and Cashmere in the color 12. And I got this marked down at a local yarn shop that does a twice a year clearance sale. It's a 50-gram skein, and I've had this. It's 50 grams, who cares? 50-gram skein, and I've had this for several years. I think I bought it when my daughter was a baby, and it's 136 yards per 50 grams. So I think about a worsted weight. Yeah, 95% wool, 5% cashmere. And it's very soft and lovely. And I think I had intended to make my daughter a hat with it, but she's ended up having a whole bunch of hats, and I just didn't really have a purpose or a need for it. So it's been sitting in the stash for a long time, and I only had that one single ball. And finally decided my daughter had outgrown an alpaca cowl that I had made her when she was a baby, and she was crying because it now fits her brother and it doesn't fit her. But I'm just laughing because in my children's book recommendations, yarn books video, whatever that one was called, there's a book about a big brother who outgrows the sweater and it goes to his little brother and he's mad. It's very, very relevant for me. But I made my daughter another cowl. And I did not exactly follow a pattern. It is inspired by my Infinity and Beyond scarf, which is, and I want to say, I feel bad sometimes, like, I don't know, it feels advertising to be talking about my own patterns, but also this is what I do. Like, I'm a pattern designer, and sometimes after I initially launch a pattern, I feel bad like reposting about it on Instagram or talking about it or linking to it. But I don't feel like I should have to apologize for that or feel guilty to talk about my livelihood. So I will link my patterns below, because if you're interested and want to support me, that's great. And if not, then don't. I'm fine either way. But I do have a loop adult size infinity scarf. So I just hit myself in the nose. One continuous loop, and it's got this stitch pattern, which is crochet, but is a fabulous knit knockoff. And it's worked in a bulky weight, worsted weight yarn in the pattern. It's one of my older patterns. And it's got this great texture on the other side, and it makes it reversible. I don't have a cowl version of it, but I basically just, I think I wrote down somewhere, I think I chained 100 or so stitches. Hang on, let me find it. I put a note on my phone just to tell you what I did. Okay, I found it. So I was using an L crochet hook. I did 45 chains, which isn't like 100 at all. 45 chains to start with, and after doing 5 rows, I switched to a K hook. So I dropped down to make it cinch in without having to do any decreases. I don't know if I can really show you, but it's slightly more narrow at the top than it is at the bottom. And I put one of my old tags on it with the Fox logo, and my fingernail is still jacked up for slamming it in a door, and I'm sorry, just bear with me. But yeah, it fits my daughter perfectly, and it's just ever so soft and like not the slightest bit of itch at all, because cashmere is fancy pantsy. And it's just lovely. And it took me 1 nap time to create. She's like, wow, you finished that already? Because she was crying before nap time. I worked on it while her brother napped, and then boom, it was done. So very simple, very lovely, and you could easily modify the Infinity and Beyond scarf into a cowl if you just adjusted the amount of chains that you start with. So that's that, very simple. And I think that's my only finished object besides the design bits. Okay, let's talk about this beautiful thing behind me here. I have it stitch markered together because this is not done. This is the Daft Days cardigan by the Crochet, and it is still needing ribbing on the ribbing and the neckline. Ribbing needs to be done, and I need to cast off. Both the sleeves are finished with the ribbing, but I need to just try it on once more. I blocked the cardigan itself before I did the ribbing on the sleeves because I wanted to make sure it was the right length. And I'm pondering if I want to do some fancy pantsy tubular Italian bind off sewn tomfoolery on the cuffs, or just a normal, I usually do like a half stretchy Jenny stretchy bind off, where I only yarn over half the stitches, every other, just the purl stitches, just the knit stitches, something. That's what I usually do on cuffs and sleeves, but I was thinking maybe I'd do a fancy finish, but it's again, this is lacking the neckline and the button band, so it's kind of wobbly. But it's from the bottom up, and I just did a regular long tail cast on the bottom, so it wouldn't even matter as far as matching. So I'm not sure, but I am going to finish off the sleeves, and I didn't want to pick up for the button band before recording because I figured it'd be harder to show you once it's all like tight on the needles. But this is, let me take this off of here, the Daft Days cardigan, and I am loving it. Let's see, what are my thoughts here? So like I said, it's a cardigan, obviously. It is knit flat, as most cardigans are, and it is a slip stitch pattern. It looks very much like broken rib, but I think Rebecca maybe did slip stitches so you wouldn't have to purl as much. It's a very simple repetitive slip stitch pattern, and she designed it in I think a 14 mini skein advent set. So I was working also with 14 mini skeins and holding them double. It's DK weight. And then the main color is DK, so I'm not holding that one double. I dyed all of these yarns myself, and you can jump back to the video about natural dyeing if you want a little more info on that. I have a whole playlist as well. This is just Bella promotes herself episode. 2024, we're gonna talk about my business and promote it because I'm proud of it. This is a skein that I dyed with, what did I dye you with? Acorns. That was a fun transition. White oak acorns. Modified with iron, and then I dyed all of the mini skeins as well And I made myself this marvelous little cheat sheet to keep track of them. It's looking bedraggled from being in the project bag. But I just took a little piece of cardstock, punched some holes in it, and then put a sample of each one of my minis on it. Actually, the yarn that was tying them together, so I wasn't wasting any. And I have the info of all the colors on there. So we got things like a bunch of pokeberry, onion skins, wild grapes, black beans, carrot tops, dandelions, hickory hulls, and black huckleberries and variations within there to give me, I think, 14 colors, right? Yes, 14 colors plus a main color. The original sample I did swatch very diligently, and I got gauge and everything was good, but I think as I've been working it, my gauge has tightened up a little bit. 'Cause sometimes if it's a new stitch pattern or a stitch you're not used to working, I did like a sizable larger than 4x4, probably like almost 6x6, 5.5x5.5 swatch. Worked flat and all of that to match the pattern. Got gauge, blocked it, whole deal, due diligence. But sometimes as you are adjusting into a stitch pattern, once you really get the rhythm of it, your gauge can kind of change a little bit. So originally I was on gauge, but I think things tightened up a tad as I was working this because it's definitely tighter than I thought it was going to be. I think I was shooting for, it's the one that was about a 43 inch bust, I think. I think it's a size 3 in the pattern. Might be the size 4. I don't exactly remember, but I was going for about that, and I think I'm coming out about 39 inches instead, which is not a lot of positive ease for me. I'm about a 37.5, 38 inch bust. So 39 inches is not the amount of positive ease that I really wanted. It's not 39 inches of positive ease. It's a total of about 39 inches. But I think I'm gonna maybe make the button band just a tad wider, and I was hoping with blocking that it was going to grow more, but this stitch pattern, if you're pondering making it, has a lot of growth this way, particularly because this is superwash yarn. It has a lot of length growth, but because you're doing slip stitches, there's not a lot of horizontal growth, width growth. Width growth is a terrible thing to have to say. It just sounds awful in my mouth. But it doesn't stretch a ton this way because of the slip stitches. It's pretty rigid, which I knew because I've done slip stitch socks before and had them be pretty tight. But yeah, I don't know. So hindsight, I probably should have gone up a needle size from what I was doing. I don't even remember if I got the gauge in the pattern or not with the recommended needle size. I think I'm working on a US 7. So the sleeves, I went up to a, nope, lies. I'm just telling lies everywhere. I'm doing the sleeve on a set, I think I did the body on a US 6, and then went up one size for the sleeves. But yeah, I probably should have maybe done the whole thing on a US 7. I don't know. But overall, it does fit. It's just going to be tighter than I wanted, and I can try to get some B-roll to put in how it's looking. But it's very hard to tell how the final fit will be without the button band, because everything is just kind of dangling and hanging off of me. But other than the positive ease situation, I don't really think I have any regrets going on here. I do very much like all of the colors and how they played with the main color, except right here. Anywhere where this light blue, you can't even see it because it's faded to gray. I will put in a picture of the original. It was dyed with black beans, and it is apparently not light fast at all. This is it in the little nugget that I have left, but it was even more a bright, closer to like a robin's egg, like a dark robin's egg. I don't really know what color to compare it to, but a bright bluey teal, close to robin's egg color. But as it's exposed to light, it's definitely fading. Oh, hang on, I'm stuck. It's definitely fading more to a gray blue. In dyeing blue, this is the last color that I even added. Like, I added it in last minute because I really wanted to have a blue. Like, yeah, it's right there. And it's very similar to the acorn color. And getting blue is really hard without indigo, which isn't, without going into a ton of sciencey bits. Dyeing with indigo is how you get blue, but it's different than typical natural dyeing, where you usually, basically, you kind of like make tea. Like, you steep the plant matter in water and then you create a dye bath with it. Indigo, I have not done yet. It's a little more chemistry-y and a little less I could leave out on my counter and feel okay about it with like my kids and my cats. There's some additives and other stuff, and it has to sit for a while, I believe, and it's a little different. So I haven't done indigo, and I think you can also dye blue with woad, but I don't have that accessible either. So I was trying to find a blue that I could do with stuff that I had easily, either from my yard or from my pantry. So I tried black beans, and it produced a really cool color. And actually this green was then black beans, this bright green. I'm trying to use other fingers because that one's just so ugly. This bright green was the black bean over dyed with turmeric. And so that produced a really fun green color, but that blue just is not light fast as some dyes are. And it's kind of annoying because it's just so similar to the gray. But other than that, I think all the colors play together really beautifully and contrast really well. And overall, I was really worried about yarn chicken, but I've gotten through the body and the sleeves, and I think I actually added 3 or so stripe repeats, 3 or so more colors within the gray in between to the body. It's worked bottom up, which is always tricky. It hits me right about the top of my pants, and I would have liked it maybe an inch longer, but I was worried about having to play yarn chicken on the sleeves and running out. But hindsight, I think I would have had enough to add a couple more stripes and give me a little more length, but it is what it is. But I do have, oh, it's snowing out. How fun. I do have a bit of yarn left that I'm working into another project now, and I could have, I think, made it work. But I dyed up 4 skeins of the main color in DK, and that's definitely been plenty. I'm only on the 3rd skein, and I have all of this left to do the ribbing, which is more than plenty. I will say my first skein, I really liked the color variation, the one that I cast on with in the gray. It had a lot of like white and bits of other shades of gray peeking through. And while we're looking, the only modification that I made to the whole pattern, I think, other than adding a bit of length, is I did a purl row here. So I made like a purl bump after the ribbing, just for a fun little detail. But the skeins that I have left are more of a solid gray. It has a little bit of tonality to it. So I'm a little concerned that maybe I should have saved some of the first skein to then do the button band and collar or neckline, because now this gray is going to abut this gray and they might not be exactly the same. But I think it'll be okay. Overall, in the whole garment, I didn't alternate the grays, and with all the striping, you really can't tell, I don't think, the difference between the 3 skeins that I was working with. So I think I'm going to have a completely untouched skein of gray left, more than enough, but again, my gauge shrunk, so maybe I would have needed the 4 skeins, I don't know. But overall, I'm very happy with the Daft Days, and I'm excited to get it done. I'm filming last couple of, what is it, the 29th of January, and my birthday is in mid-February, so I'm hoping to have it all done and blocked and everything for that. I had talked about making buttons, but I think what I'm going to use, hang on, we're going to do a reach. Got the buttons. I think what we're going to use are these ceramic ones by my friend Lori of Fiber and Mud, who is an indigo dyer and does amazing things with indigo, and I've talked about her before on my channel. She is my indigo expert. But these are beautiful. I had bought them a while back, and they have like a more bluish hue or yellow with blue on one side and then more solid yellow on the, I think that's probably the back, but I could go either way. I might use those, or I have these purple ones with like texture in them as well, but this just might be a tad bit too juvenile with my already rainbow sweater. We'll see when I finish. The purple actually looks really lovely with the, shipped so I can show you. Looks really lovely with the gray main color, but yeah, the little hearts and stuff just might be too cutesy. Too much to hold here. So we have purple, and then we have yellow. I talked about making my own buttons for this, but I forgot that I had these. I had bought them for a project for my daughter originally, and then it didn't end up working out. So I might use those, I think. We'll see. But I love Lori's buttons and all of her work. So I will link her below if I remember. And I don't think she sells the buttons off her website, unfortunately. She does sell indigo and all sorts of indigo related things, pigments for like painting or ink, and she does all sorts of clothing and napkins and scarves and all sorts of good stuff. But the buttons, I think you have to catch her in person. So lucky me. But I think that's what I'm going to use. So we'll see. Stay tuned on that for the Daft Days. Very excited overall to have it done and finished and ready, and I'm just really proud. Other than the blue that went a little funky, I'm really proud of this hand-dyed rainbow. really amazed that this is something that not only I knit myself, but I created the colors for. I think the only way you could get more like complete on this project is if I had the sheep and spun the yarn myself, which maybe I'll get there one day. But I'm really proud of this. It's really beautiful. And I mean, I would say it's kind of an heirloom piece. I would like to hope that someday my daughter will think this rainbow cardigan is cool. But it's definitely a bit of a statement. But if you're gonna go big, go big. Grow your own rainbows and then make them into a sweater. So I love, ooh, that's washing out, sorry. I love it so much. And it's a really fun pattern. If you look at all the project pages, there's some people doing them in just 2 color stripes, or I think it would also be really nice in a solid. It's a nice textured pattern. But doing the stripes does keep it interesting because it's like the self-striping sock yarn where you just want to get to the next stripe. So overall, it's worked out pretty fast, and other than the gauge and the funny blue, no regrets. Excited to show it to you finished next episode. Popped her back on the hanger there, but now I have more thoughts to tell you. The only other, not a regret, but just something you should know about the pattern, in case you didn't think of it. Because you are working flat, there's a lot of yarn ends to manage. So I have woven in all the ones on the front here. Eventually I did start carrying up the gray. I think about halfway through I was like, whatever, I'm gonna just carry it up the side, because when I pick up for the ribbing, I think I can mostly disguise it. But there's just a ton of yarn ends to weave in for each stripe. And then inside the sleeves, I don't know if I can really show you here. There's, again, a bazillion. I'm carrying the gray, but there's a bazillion million. It's a whole fringe. I could pull it to the outside of the sweater and block it out to be like a cowgirl fringe, but that's a whole different statement. But I don't know if I can repost a reel of somebody else's to a video here. I think there's probably rules against that about posting somebody else's content in your content. I don't know. But my friend Emily sent me a reel of somebody like basically braiding the ends together on the inside of a Fair Isle sweater. So where it's like tons of color work in different colors, braiding the ends together. And I didn't think that would work very well along the edge where I was picking up for the button band, because then it would kind of, I don't know, create some bulk with a braid there. But I think I'm gonna try that on the inside of the sleeve. I think I'm gonna braid these down. So I'm gonna have to find the reel again. I'm not entirely sure of the logistics of that, but stay tuned. I think that is my final thought on the daft days for today. So I'm gonna put it back on the hanger back here, and then we will jump into, that was loud, something else daft days-ish. One moment. We have socks. I'm calling them my daft days-ish socks because they are in fact very similar to my Daft Days cardigan. There is no Daft Days socks pattern. There is a Daft Days shawl. If you're interested in working in just fingering weight yarn instead of DK weight, Rebecca does have a shawl version of the pattern, but there's no socks. As far as I know, she doesn't have any sock patterns. But I decided to use up some of the scraps because I have quite a bit, and I'm keeping it in this super official yarn management system. I had it in a project bag for the cardigan, but they kept coming unraveled, and I kept thinking I had lost one of the two to hold together. So it's living in a takeout container now that I lost the lid for. So I've separated it by colors I haven't used and have used, and I have some of them. I split the minis originally into 2 10-gram balls, more or less, but some of them weren't exact, so I have some balls. But as you can see, I have quite a bit left and probably could have squeaked in those extra stripes on the cardigan, but didn't want to risk it because obviously I couldn't get more of the yarns. But this is what I have left, and I figured I was going to work it up into some socks. So I don't have a gray hand-dyed, but I'm using my favorite. This is looking like my baby got a hold of it, because he did. My favorite Patton's Croy in the colorway Flax. I have to work on that. My favorite go-to sock yarn. And it's similar but different to this gray. It's a little darker. And I would say, as far as flax that I've worked with before, this is a little bit darker of a dye lot, but I actually really like it. And it's contrasting a little bit better with the yarns. But I figured I was going to make a similar, look at how cute they are together. If I can get them done for my birthday, then I'll have a whole outfit. How ridiculous am I? Similar but different, color inspired sock. So they started out sort of as the broken rope socks from Summerly Knits, which is part of the Hello Sailor sock set. And I need to add some errata to my box of sock set. I think there was a pair of socks in there that I said was part of the Hello Sailor sock set, and it was in fact a Summerly Knits pattern, but not part of the sock set, so sorry, I need to go back and fix that. But these are from the Hello Sailor sock set, at least this part here, right there. That's the only part I followed the pattern for, because I already had it, but I was like, oh, actually, I'm gonna add some 1x1 ribbing to the top, so I did that, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna heel flap and gusset, because that's what I always do, and I held that double. If you can see, it's kind of marled. I held it double with a Green Mountain spinnery cone, which I add to many things to just add some extra thickness and reinforcement. And then on the foot, I just did whatever I wanted. So I literally just followed the pattern for this part, stitch pattern. And this is a broken rib, so you're not doing slip stitches. I didn't want to do slip stitch, which I could have easily converted that cardigan stitch into a sock, but I know that slip stitches don't have, like I said, that horizontal give to them, that width. So they tend to be tighter on my foot, which could be good or bad depending on the sizing. But this is just a typical broken rib stitch. And then I started out doing, so these are 2 stripes of the contrast color with a chunk of gray in between. I was worried because these are only 50-gram balls and I only had one. I was worried about yarn management and getting all the way through. And also I just kind of liked the larger stripe. And hindsight, I wish that I did the whole sock with the larger stripes, because I think those are really fun. And I think in the Summerly pattern, I think she carries the texture through the whole foot, and I'm just doing stockinette on the bottom. And I actually really love the stockinette portion and would like a sweater in like this. I actually have a beige and rainbow striped store-bought sweater that I've had for years and wear a ton. That has like a similar rainbow stripe with a thicker chunk of stripes throughout. And I really like the way that looks. And I think I'm actually, even once I get through the second sock, going to have enough yarn bits to make another pair. I want to use up all this rainbow yarn that I dyed in entirety and try to keep it together in a project. I could just throw it into scraps and work it in wherever. But I kind of want to keep them together as like a set, because I dyed them all to be together and live happily ever after. So I'm going to work them into as many socks as I can. I do have a brownish yarn. I could naturally dye a main color, I guess, at this point, but I'm trying to work with some of the stash that I have. I do have a brownish colored main color that I think I could use with these to do then a thicker, maybe not even with the broken rib, maybe just a vanilla stockinette with the stripes. And I have realized that this stripe here that I just did while my son was napping, this one, I did one less repeat, so I need to rip out this blue stripe. I will say the darker gray does contrast with the blue a little better. I need to rip out the blue stripe and add another repeat to the gray, because I messed that up. But these are really fun. And I think I'm going to do a different heel, toe, and cuff on both of them, so different contrast. I'm not sure which color I'm going to do on this one. Maybe yellow? Yellow? No, that's too similar to that. Maybe a purple toe? I don't know. So I'm going to do different heels, toes, cuffs on both, and then the rainbow stripes. But these are really fun, and it's going to be really fun in the spring when I'm wearing Birkenstocks with this whole naturally dyed outfit. Just living my best naturally dyed mom life. So those are fun. So these are some variation of the broken rope socks with a Daft Days-ish inspiration. So I'm going to call them a Daft Days-ish socks, but just know that this is not the Crayabea endorsed pattern. Or a Summerly Knits pattern for that matter. It's just kind of my own thing. So that, I think, is my last project on the needles at this time. So when I cast that off, bind that off, I don't have another particular direction that I'm going. I have a crochet design that I want to work on, but I like to have a selfish garment either for me or my kids or something kind of on the needles at all times. So what I'm thinking, I have, like I said, we have this book. We're going to do the giveaway winner in just a bit. But there's a pattern in here. And I will say this copy is mine. You'll be getting your own copy. Where is it? There is a raglan sweater in here. Probably should have done a better job of this. No, just kidding. Hold on. Experiencing difficulties. This one. It's not a sweatshirt, and it's a super basic. Things are falling. Super basic. You can't really see because it's a pretty light color. Super basic raglan sweater pattern. And it's DK held with fingering and a mohair, and obviously some knitting for olive yarn, which I do not have on hand, but I would like to make a super cozy, probably even more positive ease. Does it say how much positive ease is allotted in here? Looks like about 7 or so inches of positive ease in this one. I would like to go like 10 to 12 inches of positive ease and make a really, really sweatshirty version of this in, oh no, not a basic gray, not some nice Danish yarn, some crazy yarn. I am not one to have projects on the needles or languishing, as we like to say, languishing in the closet, languishing in a project bag, languishing whips. I don't have languishing whips because languishing makes me languish. It makes me despair. If I had like ongoing projects that were not being completed and were just suffering somewhere waiting for me to end them one way or the other, put them out of their misery or into my closet, that would actually keep me up at night. That would actually, there would be guilt deep in my soul about that. So I don't have languishing whips except for this one. I do have one blanket that's a knitted blanket that has a bazillion ends that I have to sew in, and it's acrylic, and it's just not top of my priority list, but it's done, it's made. Ends need to be sewn in. Other than that, there are no whips that are unfinished in my life. But this is not a whip that is going to be finished. This started out as a good idea back, I would say 6-7 years ago. And back when I was kind of getting back into knitting, and I was like, I am gonna, oh boy, I am gonna knit a sweater with this yarn that I have, and this is definitely a boxy, huge, and I have no idea what needles, I have no idea what I did. I know it was bottom up. I have a twisted rib cuff or hemline, and I did a split hem, and this is just massive. But I did like drop shoulder, and these armholes are too small, and then I was like, oh, I don't like the shaping, and I didn't do it. I didn't know anything about short rows at that point or any kind of shoulder shaping or anything, so it's literally just a big square that I stuck a neckline on, a rectangle, with some armholes. And yeah, I'm not a fan of what's happening here, but do kind of want to salvage this yarn. This yarn is, I think, by far discontinued. And I think I actually have, I thought it was all one, but I think I actually have 2 different versions. This is yarn Modadea, I'm not really sure. Sassy Stripes, look how sassy. Why are we blowing out? There we go. This I got about 7 years ago at an auction house that I worked at. My husband and I actually both worked at an auction house for a while together. It's the only job we've worked together, and it was owned by a family member. Long story short, the auction house didn't end up being a thing long term. But it was a super fun job while they were a thing, that we got to work there. And like I worked full time and then would go from my full-time job to then work additionally at the auction house and like running lots and managing like sign in and payment, and like I did it all at the auction house. I cleaned the auction house. I was very invested in the auction house, and it was very fun. It was a really fun job. But yeah, the auction house didn't make it. But I got this in a lot of yarn for, I don't remember, probably like $5. It was a big box. And I think it was probably discontinued at that point. It is 100% acrylic. And it is in the colorway Crayon. And I think they both claim, no. Okay, so this one's the colorway Crayon. No, it claims that they're the same colorway, but they're totally not. It says that these are both color 6250, and on this one it says Crayon, and on this one it does not. But, I mean, you can see they're different dye lots, but they look like completely different yarns. This one is heavily maroon and blue, and this one has a much more crisp, I would say more like a crayon box look. And you can see here in this top portion, or let's see. Yeah, in this top portion, this is definitely the more crayon boxy brights. And then in this middle portion, maybe it's not showing you. This portion, it's more like a marled, muddled, there's a lot of that maroon kind of swamping in everywhere. Swamping in, that's a term that we're gonna use. So they're totally different yarns, but I I have no idea how many I've used in here. And if I frog this, I didn't sew in ends, right? No. So I think I will frog this back. I think I have enough to make, because I still have, oh boy. 1, 2. Now you see, I'm gonna have to decide if I want to combine these two together, whereas like I have, I don't know. Like they're different yarns. I feel like they need to be treated as different yarns. I don't even think I could alternate skeins because of the striping. And I really don't know what the application of this yarn was supposed to be because it clearly stripes, but it's not a sock yarn. It is 164 yards per 50 grams. So I'd say it's about a DK. So it's not even like a sock weight yarn. I guess if you used it in a blanket or something, it would make really narrow stripes, but in a garment, the stripes are kind of weird. It's a whole thing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 untouched skeins of 50 grams. So right there, I have a ton of yarn, and then however much is in here. I think I may frog it and separate it out by dye lots, because I can definitely tell which ones are which. I do like the citron-y greeny one more than the maroony bits one. Like, they don't even stripe the same. How are these even remotely the same? I don't know. It's probably why somebody sent it to an auction house. I think I may pull this out, separate it out by dye lots, and then see how much I'm left with, and if that will give me enough for an adult size garment. If not, I definitely have enough to make both my kids something out of this, and possibly myself. Is this next year's Christmas card? I don't know. Don't have enough to make JoJo one. Unless we only made JoJo one, and I do not think this is his color scheme. But what I'm thinking is I want to swatch it up. I have a bunch of this, the ball band fell off. I think also discontinued, Joe Sharp Rare Comfort Kid Mohair, 80% mohair, 5% wool, 15% polyamide. Again, that I got clearance at a local yarn store, and it's just a charcoaly gray. So I think if I swatch this up with the more citron-y one, given I have enough to make one for me, then do some gauge math, because it's gonna put me more at a worsted weight gauge than a DK weight gauge, but that might help with my positive ease situation. I don't know. So I want to swatch this, do some math, and then try and make that not a sweatshirt in this. And one of the reasons I have not, I mean, it is a soft, I wouldn't say it's a squeaky acrylic. It is a very soft acrylic, but it is acrylic, which is sweaty. I don't have anything against acrylic per se. I do have some acrylic garments that I love, and acrylic for blankets and whatnot, and it's very great for gifting and all of that. Not trying to be yarn snobby, but acrylic, as a fact, does not breathe because it is essentially plastic. And plastic is not breathable, as we know. So it's just very sweaty and tends to hold body odor and just not breathe. Whereas wool has much more breathable qualities to it. So this is why I haven't made a garment out of it. It's just kind of sweaty and hot and non-breathable. And mohair is also sweaty and hot, but breathable. And somehow in my mind, if I combine the two of them, this might be redemptive. I don't know. But I have a ton of this yarn, and I know this is not going to be a thing that I'm wearing. So one way or another, it needs to be frogged and become something. So will it be for me? Will it be for my children? Will it be clothing my whole family for 2024? I don't know. Stay tuned. I could definitely do some like flax sweaters or something out of it for my kids. But the other thing is the striping, depending on like when working up here, whether you're working flat or in the round, like it's a different amount of stitches from the whole bodies, and then the sleeves are going to be a different striping rate. So the stripe is not going to be consistent throughout. So I think holding it with the mohair might calm down the wild crayon box pattern of it all. And we might make something out of that. I don't know why I felt the need to share that because it's all very hypothetical, but I do want to cast that on, and I'm almost done with that. So I think, stay tuned. We'll talk about that next time. Let me know your thoughts. I guess while we're talking about the Knitting for Olive, which is there, everything in here is just a beautiful color palette, and all's in grays and neutrals. I think there's like one red sweater in here, but everything is very Danish neutral. Is this giving you an idea of what's in here? No, probably not. I haven't used Knitting for Olive yarn before, but someone did point out in my video that they do ship free to the US for your first order. So if you're interested in checking out Knitting for Olive, this book is lovely, whether you win or not. This is my copy, and I'm going to be giving away to someone who I haven't pulled yet. I will put the giveaway winner here on the screen. The publisher is going to send you your own copy, so I will need to get you in contact with them. But if you are the person who is on the screen at this time and has won, you have to contact me. By way of YouTube's rules, I cannot contact you directly. So it's always sad when somebody wins and then don't get in contact with me because I can't do anything about that. So if you are the winner, please contact me at bella@fiberandfox.com. My email and my Instagram and all that is linked down below. Instagram works as well, but email's probably better. Get into contact with me and I will get this to you. It is US and Canada only, but I had said that in the initial giveaway, so hopefully if you entered, you're eligible to win, and I will get this out to you, or rather get the publisher in contact with you with your info to get that sent to you. So thank you for participating in that, and I hope whoever wins really enjoys and makes some great classics. There is some hats in here I also would like to consider, but we're kind of coming out of winter into spring. In my mind, it's the end of January, so I'm less thinking about winter. It's definitely a winter sweater. I don't know. I'm kind of less thinking about making hats and stuff at this point. Everybody has their winter wear. Now I'm just going to make ridiculous statement sweaters, apparently. Spring. I need color. But that is the giveaway. Thank you for participating, and thank you to the publisher and Knitting for Olive for getting in contact with me about giving one away to you. Contact me, please. And if somebody hasn't gotten in contact with me by the next podcast episode, I will redraw. But hopefully first winner gets the book. Early winners get the book. Early birds get the worm. I don't know. I'm done talking about this now. I do have just a few acquirings. Not really, I mean, I guess they're technically purchases, but I paid like $1 for them. One of our local libraries, it's not our actual town library, but one close to us. We make all the rounds. Homeschool mama, we go to all the libraries. One of them has, they have like a book sale in the basement, but then they have like this table. And I'm not sure how the books get there. I'm not sure if they're just people put them there by donation or if the library deems them not worthy of the book sale in the basement. I don't know. But there's this whole table of like donate what you will books. There's a little jar and it's like be generous. It benefits the library. Donate. There's no particular price. Just grab what you want. Donate some books. And last time I went in, there was a whole, I'll put a picture in, I think I have on my phone. A whole bunch, somebody had donated a bunch of basic knitting books. And a lot of them were too basic or too 80s, too dated for me. So I didn't want to take them because I'm kind of beyond the basics of knitting. But a couple stood out to me. This one, and I don't know if I'm going to ultimately keep all of these or maybe I'll destash or give them away or something, but grab these for a library donation. This one's called Cast On Bind Off, and it has 33 cast-ons and 21 binds-offs to give your next project the perfect edge. And a whole bunch I just haven't really heard of before. Like provisional crochet I've heard of, circular crochet cast on, I think that's used in that hat that everybody likes to make. There's some decorative like picot ones. I probably should be showing you rather than just looking at my lap, but all sorts of alternating long tail cast on. I don't even know what that means, why you do that. Oh, it's for knitting and purling? I don't know. Channel Island cast on. Ain't nobody talking about that on the podcast. I could get some new content out here, guys. Slip knot cast on. Jenny's stretchy slip knot. And then it's got a whole bunch of circular cast ons if you want it to work top down. It's got double-sided, so those nice rolled edges. Ooh, maybe I'll look at some of those because I do not like that tubular cast on business. Don't mind a tubular bind off, but tubular cast ons have not been my friend. Two color braided cast on, like we didn't know we needed that. I don't know what the application of that is, but this is actually a really fun book, and it looks like, I haven't tried them yet, but it looks like it's got pretty good pictures and clear steps. Mobius cast-ons for when you want things to be twisted, and then a whole bunch of bind-offs. Stretchy, basic, decorative, and sewn. So maybe I'll try a new fun one on my sleeve. This book is very squeaky. Sorry, it's got the metal. I-cord bind-off, picot bind-off, Kitchener sewn, invisible ribbed, tubular interlock, all sorts of things. And then it's got these cute little like drawn illustrations as well in there. And it seems like it's a good, pretty cohesive, it's got a whole list in the beginning. So it's by Leslie Ann Bester. Haven't heard of it before, but if I can find it, maybe I will link it for you below. But it's a nice short, not short, it's a small little, I felt like a good addition to my collection. And I'm always looking up cast-ons and bind-offs and whatnot on YouTube. I pretty much do long tail, but sometimes it's a stretchy bind-off or whatnot, or tubular or something. And then I grabbed Knitting Green Conversations and Plant-Friendly Projects, which this one didn't have as much content in it that I was interested in. So this might be given away or destashed or something at some point. But there was something in here that I did like. It's got, I don't know what this is. I don't like that. So I'm not sure where it cut off there. My battery died on me. I'm sorry. I was looking down at the book. But yeah, it has this pretty shawl. Very lacy. So a lot of pretty stuff, but not any stuff that I'm positive I'm going to make. A fun backpack. I'm not going to make a cabled backpack, but cute. There was something in here that I was like, I would make though. What was it? Oh, these. Hang on. It's got a fingerless mitt. Honor the Buffalo socks and mitts, which is made of buffalo yarn. Yeah. Instead of letting the hides of buffalo raised for meat go to waste, the folks at Buffalo Gold retrieve the down undercoat and spin it into luxury yarn. So I'm not going to make actual buffalo honoring socks because I don't have any buffalo yarn, but a fun cabled sock and a fingerless mitt. I do need some more fingerless mitts for next year. So I thought perhaps that. Is it cabled? I think perhaps they are cabled. Yes. A relatively simple cable pattern. I have not yet conquered cables. They have conquered me thus far. But perhaps we shall make some buffalo cable mitts. But yeah, so this is just a bunch of, I thought it was largely plant-based yarns, but apparently there's buffalo yarn and all sorts of things in here. But yeah, so that was a fun one. Some things I'm definitely not going to make. Like that is not a hat that I'm going to make, but it's got some slippers and some skirts and some vests and some bags and all sorts of things. Knitting Green by Ann Budd, who I feel like I've heard of. Hadn't heard of this other one, but I will link those if I can find them. And now that my camera battery has died, that's usually the sign that I need to stop talking because it's gotten too long. So thank you for sticking with me through all of that. I hope you enjoyed all of my graynbowness and rambling about my own projects, designs, ideas. And yeah, it's been really fun hanging out with you every week in January. I've appreciated that. And thanks for showing up. I'm going to try to keep showing up as best I can with as much content as I can. And hopefully in 2024, we'll be seeing some more designs and content for me because I'm kind of getting back into the flow of things and figured out how to have 2 children. Sort of. It's ever changing. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your support and your likes and subscribes and views and comments and all the things. Make sure you get in contact with me if you're the winner of the book giveaway, and I will talk to you guys in the next podcast episode and perhaps in a pattern drop coming soon. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.